Hi guys. We're going to give another couple of minutes. We'll wait till about 5 past before we kick off. Okay, I think a lot of people are in now, but we'll just give another couple of minutes to see if we can get the rest of the class signed in before we kick off. Okay, so I'll be back to you in a minute.
Yourself and get myself up to about 1,800 caps. Most of those came from the 1,200 5mm rounds I got from the minigun atop the Preston-Bating round. So here's what you do. Buy your ammo.
Hi guys. Ordinarily I will kick off class bang on time, so I don't mean to be leaving people hanging around, but I'm conscious as well that there's been some issues with maybe invites not going to people that they needed to go to, and I want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to get signed in before we kick off with anything that they need to know and they don't miss anything. There's 82 people registered on the Moodle page, and we so far have 45 in the class. So we're just going to give another minute or two and see if we can get some of those people online, okay? Okay, then let's get started. So I don't think I've met a lot of you. Welcome to Object-Oriented Programming. My name is Frances Sheridan, and I'm going to be your lecturer for this module this semester. I will have met some of you last year in first year, and you might have seen my face once or twice before on the odd programming video. But I'll be looking after this module for all of you this semester. Just a reminder, while we're in Teams and we're attending classes, to keep your microphone muted unless you're asked a question or say I give an opportunity to invite questions. It just causes a lot of feedback if everybody's microphone is switched on. So I regularly will mute everybody if I find that one or two mics have been turned on, simply because I can't scroll through 80 names to figure out who it is has turned their microphone on. So I have the ability to mute everyone, and I'll do so as we go along sometimes. I'm going to just today give an introduction to the module, the assessment, the breakdown, talk a little bit about coding plagiarism. And then we're going to jump straight in and we're going to get started. Okay, and we'll start looking at Netbeans and using Netbeans after the break. So in the second hour, we look at Netbeans because that's the application we're going to use this semester. I will be recording this session, so I'll hit the record button now in a couple of minutes, and then I'll start on the slides proper and we'll go through all of the detail. If at any stage you have a question, by all means, pop it in the chat window. I am doing my best to keep an eye on everything. So I will have my slides open. I have two screens with things going on both screens, and then I have the chat open on my phone as well at the same time, so that I can try and monitor everything. If I miss your question, fear not, I'll have a quick scroll back and I'll make sure I address everything before we wrap up the class. So Freddie, I see you've asked a question about TextPad, and we're not actually going to use TextPad this semester. We're going to do all of our programming in Netbeans, okay? So the example we'll do today is in Netbeans, and we'll continue on from there in Netbeans as well. So you won't need TextPad if you don't want it taking up space on your laptop, that's fine, okay? I did provide a link on Moodle on the Getting Started page for downloading and installing Netbeans in Java, and I don't know if you've had the chance to do that or not. If you haven't, then when we take our tea break, it would be a good idea for you to start that installation process. Yes, Sean, so I'll just show you all here. Let's come up. This is the Moodle page. So you will have all originally been assigned to two separate Moodle pages, but I've combined everybody onto one page, and that is because I want you all to have access to the same set of resources. I don't want to risk the chance of anything not getting put on both pages, and then some people have access to something others don't, okay? We might do some group work at times, and so to have everything on one page makes more sense. So if you are part of the HCC program, when you go to your Moodle page, you'll just see a link bringing you to this Moodle page. You'll get enrolled on this one. You will know this is the page because it's the one when you sign into Moodle that has the picture of the computer screen with the Java icon or the Java logo on it, okay? You come in here then and into your Getting Started page. And then in your Getting Started page, it talks about a number of things, but one of those things is install Netbeans, okay? You will find the Windows 64 and the Mac 64 installations here, all right? I'm not particularly fussy about the version of Netbeans, but I'll be using the one that I've shared here on Moodle. So if you want it to be completely consistent with what I'm doing, that's the one to use. If you've already got one on there, give it a go. And if it's not working out for you, you can always change, okay? So that should be downloaded before we start Netbeans after the break, okay? But you'll get a chance at the break to do that. The other thing you should all have done is to have managed to find a pen and paper, all right? You will need to take notes. There will be important things that come up that you'll want to take a quick jot of, okay? So no harm having a pen and paper to hand as well, okay? I think, yes, we have plenty of people in now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the recording. Okay, so bear with me. All of your classes will be recorded this semester. Okay, this has been a bit glitchy on me today, so I might have to press it once or twice. Yeah, it doesn't like to record the first time it's pressed. Bear with me. That's being particularly difficult this time around. Excellent. So the session is now being recorded. So everything we say and do from here to the end will be recorded. Just a reminder, as always, when using the chat window, to be respectful of one another, to be respectful of your lecturers, and to keep it polite, okay? Like I said, if at any point you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat window. If it's a burning question that needs answering immediately, or if I'm yapping away and you can't see my slides, raise your hand and that'll get my attention and I can stop and address whatever needs addressing, okay? For anyone who's just joined, okay, I was just explaining that over the break, you'll need to make sure that you've Netbeans installed. If you go to the Moodle page, okay, the shared Moodle page that you've been redirected to, there's a page here called Getting Started. And in there, you'll see point number 4 gives you a link to Netbeans installations, and you should follow that and install Netbeans on your machine. You obviously always have the option of using the Citrix VDI desktop to run Netbeans, but it's quite a big application. It can be a little bit slow, and If you're trying to do Teams and you're trying to do the virtual desktop and you're trying to do NetBeans all on your machine at the same time, it just puts things under a little bit of pressure. So if you can install it on your machine yourself, please do so. So back to the slides, right? Yep, microphone's muted, and by all means feel free to pop a message in the chat window, okay? Now, so as I said, this is object-oriented programming. My name is Frances Sheridan, and I'm going to be your lecturer for this module this semester. First things first, I don't know if you've already had a class this morning, but just to recap, when you're in Teams, if you hover your mouse on your screen, you'll see all of these options. The first option is to turn your camera on or off. The second is to mute your microphone, or again, unmute it. The sharing screen probably doesn't appear for you if at any point in time, for instance, in labs, if I want you to show me, some of your code, I might promote you to presenter and allow you to share your code with me, okay? So in which case that button would appear, but for now you won't see it. There's more options here, one of which is adding a background. So you'll see it looks like a lot of faculty are sitting in the same office I am because we use a fake background. There are multiple options, and feel free to play with those and use them if you do have your video on. It also has a really neat feature for blurring your background. So if you've got, if you're at one end of the kitchen table and your parent is at the other end of the kitchen table working, and you do want your camera on for whatever reason, it can be handy to have these blurred backgrounds or background effects. Should you wish to ask a question via audio, you'll have to unmute your microphone. So raise your hand and then I can let you do that, okay? You know where the chat window is. I can see you all chatting away there. No problem. So that link that I shared for NetBeans has a number of different versions on there. So you can have a look there and see which suits you best. Okay, and then the last one is participants. And again, that's for me to see exactly who's in the class and who isn't. Using the chat window, again, like I said, we'll be using the chat feature in every class. Please keep the chat window solely for asking questions or indeed answering each other's questions. That's great too. But remember to keep it formal and respectful of everybody that's in the class. We will also be using the class notebook, okay? And we'll be using this a lot. I'm actually going to dip out to Teams for a moment, okay? So this is my Microsoft Teams desktop application. If you haven't downloaded the desktop application yet, I suggest you do that, okay? It's going to be important, all right? It affords you features that perhaps the web version doesn't, all right? It's a little bit more reliable as well. So this is the calendar section of my desktop app. And there's the class we're in now, object-oriented programming, okay? So you should all be able to see that. If you can't, today I put the link to the classroom on Moodle, and I will do that again for tomorrow's class, just in case people haven't received the invites, just while CTO irons out all the bugs with that scheduler, okay? If you click on Teams, you'll see all the teams that you're part of, right? You'll probably have as many teams as I do. There's a lot of them. This one, again, with the same logo as our Moodle page, is the one that we're going to use for this module. When you click in there, we've only got the one channel, but if you go to class notebook, you will see OneNote, okay? So this is a class notebook based on the OneNote technology, so you can use this class notebook via OneNote as well if you sync the two. If you open your navigation panel, you will see I've got access to all of your names here, right? Aaron, I'm going to use you as an example, okay? Inside here, you'll only see yourself, you won't see all of the other students. You click Programming Journal, okay? And all I've given you so far is a cover page, all right? And this is where you are going to do all of your programming work for the semester, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So if I show you in my teacher only section, I have the programming journal also, but I have all of the different topics. And I will issue or distribute the different pages of this workbook to each of you as we go through the semester. And as you work on it, I can dip in and out of all of your different journals and see you working on it. So I can see you working live on your code. This is as close as I'm going to get to walking up and down the labs. And I can see your thought process, but I'll talk about the detail of what goes into that in a little while, okay? So that's Teams, and that's some of the stuff that we're going to use in there. Anybody, any questions on that so far? No? Okay, Connor Keller, have you a question? You've got your hand up. No. No, you got to sort it. No problem. Okay. Right. So try not to let the Netbeans thing distract you now, guys. We've time for that. You'll get a 10-minute break at one point, and you can set it running then. Okay. So don't be fretting about that. So that was the class notebook. Now your learning outcomes for this module. There are 4 learning outcomes. The first, apply theoretical concepts to a range of context and problem domains. Right. So learn about your programming concepts and apply them to different problems. Right. Straightforward enough. Formulate computer program solutions to well-defined abstract problems. So again, I give you a problem, you come up with the solution. Design, develop, test, and debug moderately complex object-oriented programs. So here it is, right? It's all about object-oriented programming, which we've been doing all along, and which you did all semester last semester. Okay, so not entirely new, but we will get deeper into what object-oriented programming is and the ways that it works. And then the last one, identify and discuss object-oriented design principles. So we will start to look a little bit at the design principles behind object-oriented programming. And one of the topics on the module is design patterns. Okay. So that's all straightforward enough. Now, what's our schedule? So we have class every Monday 2 to 4 and Tuesday 3 to 5. So we got the graveyard shift, unfortunately. I hope your timetables aren't too busy before that, all right? But I need you to try and save a little bit of focus and energy for your programming at the end of the day on Mondays and Tuesdays. What you'll learn, we're going to look at inheritance and polymorphism, OOP principles and design patterns, array lists and arrays of objects, GUI objects and event-driven programming, file I/O and exceptions, data connectivity, and then programming in other languages. So what we're going to try to work on this semester is not only focusing on what the concept looks like in Java, but how it looks perhaps in Python or in C or some other language that we can see that there are principles behind them that are the same, but the syntax is a little bit different, just to get you used to exploring these concepts in new languages so that when you are asked someday to develop something in a language that's not Java, that you can still do that as well with very little effort. Okay. The assessment breakdown. Now, we were instructed this term with things as they are. We're trying to keep our workload and assessment to a minimum for students. So you have 2 pieces of assessment only for every module. The first is your programming journal, which I showed you, which we're going to do via the class notebook. Okay. You will document all of the programming you do this semester, basically. Okay, or most of it, and all of your learning around programming in that programming journal. The final assessment then is a TABA exam, so a terminal-based exam, which you will do from home on your computers. I have to finish out the detail on it, but I'm thinking it's going to be kind of a day-long, sign in, get your assignment, do it, and submit it. Okay, but you'll have a large window in which to work on it. And that's 50%, but your programming journal is going to be the key to being able to solve that. Okay, having that programming journal fully finished, fully complete, all of your code organized and finished out into hand will help you to finish out to do that exam. Okay, so they'll be very intrinsically connected. So yes, to answer this couple of questions coming in via the chat, it is open book. There won't be time for you to spend all day trying to find the solutions to these things online. They're not going to be questions that you can find the solution to online. Okay, so it's open book in the sense that, yes, you can refer to your notes and your slides and to your programming journal, but you will have to work in order to solve the problem. Okay, so that's how that's going to work. Okay, you don't need to worry about making the journal. I have that set up for you in OneNote, and I will issue the pages as you need them. And I've divided it all up into sections, and it'll be very clear what you have to complete and when. And I'll issue those on a weekly basis. And then at the end of the semester, I'm also going to lock them on a weekly basis. Okay. So the programming journal is worth 50%. I'll just pop back into Teams again. So the programming journal is worth 50%, okay? There are a number of topics. Topic 1 is revision, so there's no marks going for revision, okay? But you'll see there, inheritance is 5%, polymorphism 5%, OO principles 5%, arrays of objects are 5, all the way down. And then the last task is programming in different languages, which is worth 15%, okay? And that all totals 50. All right, so that's how you'll get your 50% there. I'm going to issue those on a particular day and leave them open for the week and then close them before I issue the next section, okay? And that's just to accommodate anybody who, for whatever reason, if your Wi-Fi dies and you lose your connection to the class or to the, that there's time there for you to figure out a resolution and to get around it, okay? So I will issue the pages. They'll all be structured. You're just going to fill them in. You're going to attach your code. You're going to include screenshots. You're going to do all sorts of stuff in there. And then I will lock them on a weekly basis, lock each section on a weekly basis, and you will just then continue with the next section. At the end of the term, you will export the entire book as a PDF, and you'll upload it to turn it in Moodle. So I will have a record of it in Moodle for external examiners and such, and so that I can see that everybody's efforts were unique and there was no plagiarism. Okay. Any dates we should note down for the assessment? Yes, let me see, I have them all here. So the journal, I probably should have had that on the slides, apologies. The journal is worth 50% and it is due on the 14th of December. Okay, the 14th of December. So that is the, what day is that now? That's the first day of week 12. Okay, and then your exam is down for January 5th. So that's going to be an important one to keep free. Okay. All right then. So okay. So we all have that, December 14th for the journal. December 14th and exam January 5th. Okay, now lots of questions about the journal, and I am going to go into much more detail about the journal tomorrow, okay, because we'll actually start working in it. But to give you an example, so when we start talking about the topic of inheritance, I'm going to ask you to explore the content before we actually look at what inheritance is. So I'll be asking you to explain it in your own words, find copy and paste coded examples in Java and in another language. I'll be expecting you to note some questions you have after watching videos and then the answers to those questions. And then we get into the lab and we're looking at IPO, object diagrams and so on. Development and debugging. So what errors did you get? How did you solve them? Testing plans and so on. So it's not so much that you're writing essays and you're looking for a word count or any of that kind of stuff, okay? It's filling in and getting to the point and answering the questions that have been posed, all right? So don't worry too much about that. If you're here and you're in class and you're working and you're actively watching your videos outside of class, you'll be fine. So that brings me to the next thing, I suppose. It goes without surprise that you will be watching a whole heap of videos this semester for your programming. That will enable us to make the class time more productive. Okay, if you're watching a set of videos outside of class time and then coming to class time prepared to explore content and a topic deeper. Okay, so much like last semester, all of the content is already recorded in videos, which I will make available in lessons on Moodle. Obviously, they're all on YouTube anyway, so you could find them on YouTube either if that's what you prefer. So the way that I have structured things is that videos will become available on the Tuesday after class, and you have until the following Monday to watch them. So plenty of time and plenty of room to work around your own schedules and try to work things out that way. Okay? Any questions on any of that? So instead of programming a certain application like last year for programming, we just look into the topic for your 50%. No, Freddie, not quite. So you'll look into the topic and then you'll program an application. But in order to program the application, I'll want you to do your IPO chart, your object diagram, do do some test cases, and I'll want you to attach your code to that as well. But I'll go through the detail of that. So you will be practically doing work as well for your 5%. You're probably doing more for your 5% this time around than you might have the last time. But 5% is a big chunk to be getting on a weekly basis. Okay, and I'll talk as well tomorrow about how I'm going to mark all of that. Okay, so there won't be a group project this year. No, it's all individual stuff. I do expect that when you're in class and we're practicing stuff and I set you an exercise just to do in class time, that you will give each other a nudge, that you'll discuss things, that you'll debate things, and you'll work through it that way. Okay, so what if you miss a week of 5%? So again, I'm going to make the content of the book available and leave it up probably on a Monday and leave it open until the following Monday. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to do it if you've not exactly attended the class. It'll be easier to do it if you've attended the class, but plenty of opportunity for you to make an effort if you haven't. But if you do miss a given lab assignment or whatever, and you have personal circumstances or medical cert or that kind of thing, you go through the normal channels and we'd be able to accommodate that at the end of the semester in week 12. Okay. Any other questions? So you won't be getting one this week, but what we will do tomorrow is we're going to do a revision exercise via the programming journal, just as a starting point, so you can see how to use it and you can practice filling it in, and we'll do some practical work and we'll attach the files to it and so on, but it won't be marked this week. Okay, it's just an opportunity for you to go through the process without it being worth anything, so that you get a feel for it and you can make your mistakes then. Okay. Okay. Will the application we have to make at the end be shorter than the countdown game from last year? I haven't really figured out what it is exactly yet, but I'll give you plenty of notice and plenty of scope. Okay, it'll be something you can do in the time frame that you're given. Okay, and try to keep your messages polite. All right, that last one, a bit borderline. Okay, now, right. So, what I want you to do now is, on your laptop or your phone or whatever, I want you to go to polev.com/Francis Sherry 820. Okay, it's in the chat window there. Okay, and I want you to answer this question. So just for me to understand, because I think we have, how many people have we got in class now? 75. Okay, and we have 80 odd on the Moodle page, and there may be more people. There may even be more people in the class that aren't on the Moodle page. So I just want to get a feel for who everybody is, and you may have to copy and paste. I don't think it. I don't think I have a way to copy it now and paste it into the chat, so bear with me. I'll see if I can make it clickable for you. There you go. Thank you, guys. Okay, so I just want to get a feel for who's in the room. I'm not, going to be looking to see exactly who's doing what, but I just want to understand how many of you come straight in and this is you just joining the class, how many have been here all along and have always been part of this group. Okay, and then if there's anybody in the none of the above, I might like to check in later on and figure out exactly what is your story. Okay, again, it's kind of, this POLEV is limited to how many responses it takes, but it just gives me a feel. So we have a number of people from every sort of background I was expecting. Okay, if at any point I'm talking and I sort of forget people from your context, if I'm talking and I'm saying something's going to work a certain way and you're thinking, how does that work for second years who've just arrived, feel free to stop me. Okay, that just brings me, again, if you've just joined from a college or further education, so you've come in under advanced standing straight into second year, I'm going to be saying things like last semester and last year and yada yada yada. feel free to stop me and ask me, or to drop me a mail afterwards if there's something that's unclear, okay? If you feel like you want to brush up on what would have happened last semester if you were in NCI at that stage, I know you've already got the programming experience, but if you want to brush up, if you go to YouTube and search Frances Sheridan, you'll find my YouTube channel, and all of my videos from semester 1 are on there, okay? Don't worry about it, Sean. Now I think we're okay. I think I'm happy enough that I have an idea of who's come from where. Okay, so 5-minute tea break, okay, just to give us a break before we start talking about coding plagiarism, which is going to be really important. It's an opportunity for you to start brushing up or getting Netbeans downloaded or installed, okay? Thank you, Connor, for sharing that. We can do 5 now, Freddie, and then you can have 10 after the next section, okay? That's the way I've planned it, I'm afraid. So 5 minutes now. So I want everybody back here. It says 14:32 on my clock, so I'm looking for you all to be back here at 14:37. Thank you. Okay. Right. I will try in classes, and sometimes I might need to be reminded to give you short breaks as often as I can, because sitting by yourself staring at the screen can get a little bit tedious sometimes. So even if it's just for you to get up and walk around, go grab a quick cup of tea or a glass of water and come back, it's important that we keep awake. I can't get rid of some pop-up screen when I open Netbeans. Okay. Daniel, I'm not entirely sure what's happening there. But we'll come back to the Netbeans thing after we've addressed plagiarism, and we'll try to address everybody's issues, okay? Same for you, Sean. All right. Perfect. Okay. So moving on then. Now again, you've probably seen this before. If you haven't, it's coming at a good time. Oh, there's a tip there, Daniel and Sean. Someone said earlier to open the download link in a new tab, so maybe try that, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to document your code properly. You've probably been talked to and with at length about how to reference an essay or reference an assignment of any sort, okay? But the same principle applies when writing programming code, okay? Our student handbook, for instance, says to plagiarize is to take and use the thoughts, writings, and inventions of another person as one's own, okay? Be that intentionally or unintentionally, or that they handed you over their work and said, oh, you throw your eye over mine and then write your own essay, that's fine, okay? If you're passing someone else's work off as your own, then that's plagiarism. So it arises when extracts from someone else's work are used without acknowledgement. Okay, and that's the key, is to give credit where credit is due. All right. So reuse of code that is based on the learning outcome of the module. Okay. And when we're talking about plagiarism of software, all right, we're talking reuse of code that's based on the learning outcome of the module, submitting another student's work as your own with or without that person's consent. Any act designed to give a student an unfair advantage over another student, or the attempt to commit such acts, or allowing another student to use your entire program code. So you'll see there, the person to hand over the code is as guilty as the person to use it. Okay. So if I put examples on Moodle and you decide to just straight copy and paste a big chunk of that and use it in your code without making any real changes, only superficial changes, that's plagiarism unless you've referenced that you got it from me, okay? If you've submitted someone else's lab as your own, that's plagiarism, okay? Unless you've referenced it. And that's all well and good. And we had this conversation actually just this morning with first years with respect to essays and stuff. And one student said, okay, so I can copy and paste all I want so long as I put somebody's name against it and I give the reference. And I said, well, yes, that's fine. But if you give me an assignment or a programming application that is completely comprised of other people's work all stuck together, there's nothing in there for me to mark. I'm marking your contribution. I'm marking your modifications to the code. I'm marking your code that goes in between to join it all together. So if it's all just bits taken from someone else, then there's nothing left to mark. Okay, and that's where the problem arises. All right. So yes, you might not be in trouble for plagiarism, and you might not get sent to the disciplinary committee, but you might get a 0. Okay, and this is where the issues arise. It can arise when you read code from previous year's laboratory exercises. Okay, that's not going to happen this year because our assessment structure has changed. But if, for instance, in Intro to Programming, you knew someone who was in second year and said, oh, hey, here, I have the solutions to all of the labs for Intro to Programming, then you're in trouble. Okay. Not being able to demonstrate an awareness and an understanding of the code. Okay, so that's the other way that we know is if you've written code. So, for instance, with your programming journals this year, you'll have written code and you'll have attached the code to the journal. And when I review the code, if I feel like I'm not sure you've written it yourself, I might discuss it with you a little bit more. And through that discussion, if I find that you don't know the code well enough yourself, I might draw the conclusion that you've found that from somewhere else. Okay, there's nothing gives away a student more than not being able to find something in particular in the code. Okay, there's a question. What if I use my own work from last year but only pieces of it? So yeah, again, not plagiarism, okay, because it's your work, all right? But the catch here is you can only be marked and graded for any piece of assessment once, okay? So if you were to submit a project, say for instance, I asked you to do something in this module, and then next semester in your second year project module, you decided you just submit your programming project again, you can't be marked for that piece of assessment twice. Okay, so that's where the problem arises. All right. So there's no harm opening up last year's exercises, using them as a reference, okay? And kind of as a starting point, that's great. Okay. If the classes, the order, the structure changes, it's kind of a new program anyway. So that's what I'm saying. It's okay to use them as a reference point to look back at. But you can't just submit one piece of work twice. Okay. Taking code with no understanding and not tailored to the requirements of the assessment. So what I get sometimes is I get a student who has submitted an application about books. Okay, so about a library of books. And then they'll replace library of books to garage of cars and give me back the very same thing and try to get marks for it. And that's not going to work, okay? It's a very superficial change. It's effectively the same program. You've just changed the variable names. And I have had instances rather recently where I've marked work where students have borrowed code from other students, and I use the term borrowed lightly, and simply replace the variable names. So one student added X and Y and the other student added W and Z, right? That is still plagiarism. That is a very superficial change that is irrelevant to how the program works, and it's plagiarism, okay? And reuse of code from other locations that is not substantially modified. And again, it's all about referencing. We've heard all the excuses. I didn't know. I meant to put in the reference afterwards, but I was in a hurry and I forgot. I mixed up the files when I was submitting. I wasn't going to give you that one. It was supposed to be this other one. Oh, and we worked as a team and it was his fault. Okay? So that's the other thing to note. If you're part of a team working on any assignment, and you won't be part of a team in this one, but on any written assignment, if you submit a piece of work as a team, one person plagiarizes, you're all going down. Okay? So it's important not to think, oh, grand, yeah, that's fine. It wasn't me, it was him. He can copy his bit if he wants. Okay, equally, if you copy your bit, you need to know you're getting the whole group in trouble. Okay? None of the excuses work. All right, this little cartoon. Really, someone told me it's not plagiarism if they're dead, but it absolutely is. Okay? Accidental plagiarism is still plagiarism, so please be careful. All right? You may look at other people's code to get an idea of how to solve a problem. If you reuse any code, clearly identify what has been reused and what's your own contribution. And I'm going to show you how to do that, okay? Acknowledge and refer to the source and the author. Taking code and making minor changes, for example, class names or variable names, is still considered reuse. So that's the switching out the library of books for the garage of cars, okay? That's still reuse. So we still need the reference, okay? It doesn't make it yours just because you superficially changed a couple of variable names. In fact, there's a button in Netbeans that'll even do that bit for you. So there's really no effort involved in that, okay? Code documentation. Always acknowledge the origin. And there's 3 different situations I'm going to talk to you about. The first is if you're the sole author of a class. The second is if the class is completely reused. And the third is if you're dealing with modified code. Okay? So, where you're the sole author of a class, at the top of your class, you'll have the class name. So we've been doing this all along, right? Nudeclass.java. We've some version information in there. We haven't been putting that in because anything we're developing up until this stage hasn't really required several versions. Okay, so you can put that in or take it out. We've had the date, and then we've had the author. Okay, first name, second name, student ID, and then your class. Okay, that's you writing a Java class. This tells us my name's at the top of it. Everything that's in it is mine. Okay. and that's your standard header for all classes. If your class is completely reused, okay, so you're building a project, you need a timer, you found a class that is a timer. No point in reinventing the wheel because there's no mark specifically going for a timer, but it would be a really nice feature in your application, okay? This is the reference you use, okay? So at reference and then the website where you retrieved it, okay? And that's how you're saying everything in this class now, it's not mine, it's one I grabbed from the internet from somewhere, okay? Modified code then, okay? You're going to have a reference tag for classes and methods, all right? So at the top of the class, new class.java, the version, the date, okay? You're there as the author because you did kind of write some of the class, okay? But you've also got the reference, www.wheretheclasswasretrieved.com, okay? And then in your code, in the body of the code, okay, I'm saying this first method here is one that I did. Author, first name, second name, student ID. Here's my method. But this method here is the one I borrowed from the internet. Okay, where the class was retrieved from.com. All right, and you add your at reference tag. Does that make sense to everybody? It's probably a bit more straightforward than we might have thought. So exactly, so you would have the same, yeah, exactly. So you would have the reference at the top. First, you'll have a comment to say you wrote the class, but you'll also have the reference to where you found bits of it, okay? And then the particular bit that you borrowed from the internet, you're going to put the reference right above it so I can see very clearly this next section's not mine, okay? So if you find code and you completely reuse it, and you're likely going to have to tweak little bits to make it fit in with your program, but yes, if the figuring out bit was done by somebody else on the internet, then you borrow it. If it's we don't consider string name equals Francis to be code reuse. It's one line of code, okay? But if you're taking a method or a big chunk of a method of how you tackle a particular problem, then yes, okay? You shouldn't be borrowing code from your friend. All right, okay? If you're working with other students, you should be part of a team and working with them, okay? I don't want you to, I will encourage you to work in small groups and pairs and to discuss how to approach problems at the stage when you're doing an IPO or an object diagram. But I would expect that when you're sitting and writing the code at this stage, you will be doing so yourself. Okay, so yeah, good, brilliant question, Alexis. We don't take code from friends. James, that's a good question. Is there a limit to how much we can reference? There is no limit, but like I said, if there's nothing left, that's all yours. There's not a whole lot left for me to mark. Okay, so learning to program isn't an exercise in just recycling what's out there. It's part of it, but I don't want your entire project or application to be stuff that you've borrowed from the internet from somebody else. Okay, because that doesn't show me that you can program. Okay. You must, even if you've borrowed it from the internet, you must be familiar with the reused code and be able to explain it to show that you then knew how to integrate it into your own application. And you must clearly identify your own contribution because this is what's marked. Okay. Elijah, it's not really a case of what percentage has to be your own. It's that you meet the learning outcomes of the assignment. So if I've asked you to do X, Y, and Z, and you manage to find 3 different sources, one that does X, one that does Y, and one that does Z, then there's nothing left for me to mark. So really the whole reuse of code thing comes into play if you're given a bigger project. It probably won't even be a factor for you this semester in OOP because everything's going to be small pieces. But if I'd have asked you to develop an application to teach programming to children or whatever it happens to be, there's lots of ways you can do that, and there would be nifty little features that you could incorporate into that might not necessarily have a mark attached to it, but that would help with the overall look and feel of your application. And so you could reuse that and reference it, and it's not going to do any harm to your mark. Okay, it is kind of a grey area, and it's one we feel our way through and that we'll get used to. If you're open and honest as you work on these things with your lecturer, they can give you guidance as to whether they think perhaps there's not enough of your own content in there and that you're recycling too much of what's there. Okay, but just remember, at the end of the day, if there's none of your own work in there, we can't mark it. Okay. Any other questions on that? I don't mean for it to be scary. Okay, it's not a problem. I don't imagine it's going to be an issue. It's something to really bear in mind when it comes to this open book exam at the end of term. Okay, that's probably where it's going to come into play for most of you. And like I said, anything you're submitting to be marked, be it something in your programming journal or your exam at the end of the year, has to be your own work. Okay, it has to be your own work. Right. Okay, so if you haven't already done so, please install Netbeans on your laptop while we take a quick 10-minute break. The link is there in the slides. I've already put it in the chat. Is there any website or software that can help to detect plagiarism in your code? Not specifically, no. Not that I know of yet anyways. But actually faculty are really good at spotting those kinds of things, all right? When you're marking 60 programs submitted by a group of students, you start to kind of realize, actually, this looks really familiar. And we know what to look out for to see in the typical. I mean, I've had students submit me code with other students' names still at the top in the comments, but there are more subtle ways to notice when one is the same. What I would say for you, though, from a student perspective is, don't think about it as avoiding plagiarism. Just think about programming honestly, right? The more programming code you write yourselves, the better programmers you're going to be. Okay, so don't think about it as avoiding plagiarism. If you're ever in doubt, straight up ask me if it's okay to reuse something. And other than that, just write, and keep doing your own code, and you won't have any issues. Okay, think about it from a positive spin instead of a negative one. All right, it's trying to be a good programmer. Now, tea break for 10 minutes. It's 14:54 now, so we'll be back at 3:05. Okay, so 3:05 p.m. and we have Netbeans open and ready to go. Okay. I will try to look at some of your code for the journal before it closes and give feedback where I can. I won't always get to everybody's every week because there's like 80 of you. But I will do my best. There's the link again for the Netbeans stuff. Okay, so that's Netbeans and Java, all in one neat little single clickable link, so you don't have to go finding the Java and finding Netbeans and configuring the two. So 10-minute break. I'll see you all back here at 5:05. Okay. Okay. Hi guys. I'm going to turn my camera off because it is picking up the ladybug feed, so this could be interesting. I'll have to change my settings on that one. I saw your question come in there, Owen, before the break. So I have asked Emer to pop in and say hello, and chat to you briefly about computing support. So we'll start with that, and it'll give me a chance then to look at my camera settings. Thanks, Emer.
Hi guys. I'm sure most of you remember me from last semester or last year. So there will be computing support for object-oriented programming. And what you need to do is keep an eye on your emails for, I'll email you out to say that it's happening and how to get to it. It will probably be Adobe Connect online class at the top of the computing support page. I'm going to give you a link here to the computing support page. So there will be, there's resources already there, guys. So check them out. You may have to click self-enroll to get onto that page. Okay, just to be aware that there's a self-enroll button. Does anyone have any questions? You can email me as well for a one-to-one session, and or for a group session if you want to. There's also a scheduler on that page that you can use to book a session with me. Okay. Does anyone have any questions, guys?
Okay. There's no way for me to pin this link, should there not?
Not
that I'm moving around. Not that I'm aware of. No, sorry, Freddie.
No, actually, Freddie, there's a link on the right-hand side of your Moodle dashboard for computing support. So down the right-hand side, you should have math support, I think student support, computing support links, library, and other things. Have you found that, Freddie? So Sean, you can log into Citrix to get Netbeans, okay, if you're struggling to download it. And I'll pass that query back to Francis for Netbeans. It's all right, I've enrolled, and we'll sort that out later. So once you've enrolled, Freddie, the computing support page should show up on your Moodle dashboard. But then I'll be sending emails, and generally in the, in the subject line, I'll have computing support written in them, okay? When I'm sending out class information, support class information. Okay, guys, any questions?
Thanks, Emer. That's perfect. I think it was just to know you're still there. You're still looking after us.
I'm on Teams as well, guys. I need a Teams chat. Okay. See ya.
Perfect. Thanks, Emer. Cheers. So, guys, I think at this stage, if we're still having difficulty accessing Netbeans, don't worry about it for today. It'll give you a better opportunity to watch what it is I'm doing and perhaps make some notes. Okay. Which you might opt to do today anyway. I'll put the solution to today's application on Moodle free either way, okay? So you'll all have a copy of the code. That's if we even get it finished. So don't worry about it. At least now, if you don't have it downloaded, we know that you have a difficulty doing it. And I can perhaps meet some of you outside of class via Teams, and we can try to get that sorted for you, okay? Equally, you could meet each other outside of class in Teams either, and try to make it work, okay? So lots of suggestions coming in via the chat window there, Sean, if you want to try some of those. But don't worry about it for now. Let's all just focus on how we're going to get through, how we do. Yeah, Sean, if you don't mind, drop me a message, just let me know, and then I can arrange to chat with you after class or maybe tomorrow and before class tomorrow and get it sorted for you then, okay? And we'll work on now. We'll continue on and we'll get cracking, okay? So it's just a small revision problem from last year to get our minds working again, thinking about Java again, and seeing how we're going to manage our applications in Netbeans this time around, okay? So develop an application that accepts a sentence from the user. The application should then count and output the number of letters, vowels, consonants, and words there are in the sentence. Okay, so a little bit more than hello world, but still a little bit of a revision, okay? Those of you who were in my class last year will know I'm a big fan of an IPO chart, right? Let's identify what our input, process, and output is for this particular program. And so I have plugged in the Ladybug, and I hope it works, because we're going to try it. No, it's not liking using. Okay. I'm going to switch my device settings back. I'm going to turn off my camera. Switch over to my Ladybug. Let's see if that fixes things. Just bear with me for a second, guys. These are all things we can't test out till we're actually in a class. So you're the guinea pigs. There we go. Okay. I've also been given a snazzy new graphics tablet, which I'll try to get working for the next class, because this is a bit old school and I don't think it's going to like using the webcam and the Ladybug at the same time. Right. So I'm going to be looking for some feedback here from all of you. Okay. So we're going to do an IPO chart, and we're going to start with input, process, and output. Okay. And what I want to know is this problem that we're going to try, okay, where we accept a sentence from the user and we count the letters, vowels, consonants, and words in the sentence. What variables are we going to need for the output? So we always start with the output column. Okay, what variables and what data type would they be? Yes, we are using instantiable classes today, Alexis. We're going to use instantiable classes all of the time. So what output will I need to give the user? What variables am I going to need for my output for this problem? If I want to tell them how many letters, vowels, consonants, and words, okay? So we're going to use integers, great, because we don't want to count half letters or half vowels or half words, okay? And yeah, the first one, so int letters. What's next? Int. So we have int letters. What other variables am I going to need? Vowels, very good. Okay. And consonants, I'm going to write cons because that's, if I go any further, I tend to make spelling mistakes, so we keep it simple. Letters, vowels, cons, and anything else? Words, okay. So thanks for that, guys. So just a note, one or two of you were looking at maybe using strings there. So string would be for the words themselves or the letters themselves, but here we're counting the number of words and the number of letters. So actually we're using integers, okay, because we want whole numbers, we don't want decimals. If we were using decimals, what would we use? Double. Brilliant. Okay, so these are all just the things we need to recap. All right, excellent. So for your input then, what's my input variable or variables going to be? String, very good. And what will we call it? What would be a good name for this string? Input, brilliant, okay. Happy days, all right. Now my process, okay? And again, we can kind of make this pseudocode, half English, half code, all right? It doesn't have to be exactly what we're going to do. But what I like to do when I'm trying to figure out my process is take my output variables and think, how do I get this from this? Okay, so I would start with letters equals. How am I going to work out how many letters? The word, third word, so it's letters, vowels, cons, C-O-N-S, okay? That's C-O-N-S, Sean. So it's great as well, guys, to see helping each other out in the chat window as well. So that's brilliant. Please keep it up, okay? So how am I going to count how many letters are in the sentence? we could use the for loop. Con stands for consonants. Okay. Char-at method we use for identifying one particular character. Okay. Okay, so we could use dot length. All right. Let's just say input dot length is going to give me the length of the string. Okay. But if we're looking for just letters, what's the catch? Okay, so input.length will give me the number of letters and spaces in the string. But if I want just letters, I'm going to have to subtract spaces, aren't I? So at some point, I'm going to have to work out what spaces is. All right. If I want vowels, okay, what am I going to do to find out how many vowels are in the sentence? An if statement, very good. Inside of a loop. Brilliant. Okay. So I'm going to loop through input, and if if the character at I equals a vowel, then I'll do vowel plus plus. Okay, that's the general gist there. All right, so that's for my letters, my vowels. Okay, my consonants. How am I going to do my consonants? Again, we're going to loop through. So loop through input, and if char at I equals a consonant, then we do cons plus plus. Okay, and then we had only one more, right? Words. How are we going to do the words? We could put the cons into a loop as the else. We could, or as an else if, maybe, Freddie. I don't know if an else would do it, because we could have vowels, we could have consonants, and we could have spaces. Okay. And again, yeah, we could do the number of letters minus the vowels would give us consonants plus spaces. Okay. So if we want words, okay, we could count the spaces. Usually there's a space at the end of every word, right? So let's try loop through. And again, this might all need refinement when we get to actually writing it. Letters is already the length of the thing minus spaces, okay? So we need to find the number of spaces in order for that to work. All right, that's a good point, Ian. Loop through the input. All right, if char at I equals a space, spaces plus plus, words plus plus. Okay, so that gives us the number of spaces. Okay, and good point, Joshua. If it's a full sentence, shouldn't we subtract punctuation too? We could, or that might be a reason not to get into the subtraction field. Okay, so we'll take a look at it when we actually get to writing the code, and we can add all these refinements afterwards. All right, but I think this is a very good starting point. I think for us to start with our input, our output, and our basic process for all of these different parts is a good place to start. Okay, so let me see. I think I can take pictures of this. Okay. Now, bear with me. I'm going to see if I can just share this for you now. Okay. Okay, so now we're into Netbeans, all right? Okay, I'll have a look. We can jump back and forth into the document camera and see that, and I'll put it on Moodle for you then afterwards, okay? Now, Netbeans. I have Netbeans open here, okay? And I'm going to just pop it on my screen so you can see. Okay, so here we have Netbeans. All right. Top left-hand corner, you're going to see the important bits, okay? The little file icon with the plus sign is new file. Next to that is new project. And next to that is open project. We're going to do new project. So everything we develop now in Netbeans is going to sit in a project, okay? We're going to create a new project. Again, you can work along with me, or if you prefer, you can just watch, make notes, and then put it into practice yourself later, okay? So I'm going to create a new Java. So select Java in the categories and Java application in the project section. Click next. Here we're going to give our Java application a name. So we'll just call ours, I don't know what's a good name for this. Counting app. Okay. You'll see automatically it ticks a box down here, create main class counting app. Okay, we leave that as it is. It also automatically says, hey, I'm going to put all of your Netbeans folders, all your Netbeans projects in this Netbeans projects folder that's saved somewhere obscurely on your C drive that you're likely to never find easily. Okay, what you need to do is browse and then find your way to your OneDrive would be my recommendation. If I can find my way to mine, I'll be doing well. OneDrive. Okay, and modules, OP. Okay, I'm just going to pop it here for now. I should really make an examples folder. Okay, so you browse and you tell it where to save it so that you can always find it again. Okay, so many students annually in this module lose so many projects and so much work. Okay, and particularly if you ever did find yourself working on the machines in the college, it'll automatically default to the documents folder, and you don't want to be saving it there because then it's just on that machine and you won't have an attachment. Okay, Gustavo, you don't have Netbeans 8.2, have you? I think you might have a different version of Netbeans to what we're working from. I think you've installed Apache Netbeans. So maybe just watch what we're doing for now and get yourself Netbeans 8.2 for later on, okay? For tomorrow. Just watch out for that, guys. The link that I shared is giving you Java with Maven, Java with Gradle, and Java with Ant. It shouldn't be. Can I check back? Okay, yeah, so maybe use the link that I gave you because things might just, I'd be concerned things will look a little bit different for you, and I was just trying to keep things consistent. But if you want to try Java with Ant for now, then that's okay. Otherwise, you can just watch along for today. So we finish. Now, so what it has done for me is this. Now, I'll just see, can I zoom this in a little? Anybody who, if anybody does know how to quickly zoom this in, please let me know. It would be better, I'm sure. Or is the view all right for you guys? Oh. Now I can make the font bigger, but it would be easier to just zoom in. I'll make the font bigger anyway. Again, it might not be an issue because you're all sitting in front of your computers and not in a computer lab trying to see past other computers, but we'll see how you go. Yeah, I don't think. Anyways, I'll take a look at that outside class and we'll see how we go. Maybe. Okay. So you'll see here in the top left, we have our projects window. And in that now we've got this counting app, which is what we called our project. And there's a little plus sign next to that. And if you expand that, you'll get source packages and libraries. Again, you can expand source packages and you'll get counting app. And if you expand that, you'll see our counting app.java, which is the file we're looking at the moment. Okay. So Netbeans has created a Java class for you, which will act as your main class. And we know it's the main class because it says public static void main string args. Okay. So this is our main class, but we, in doing our object-oriented programming, will use an instantiable class and a main class, okay? So your instantiable class, what you need to do is click on counting app on the inside source packages, not the file, but the folder. Right-click, new Java class. Okay, so we're adding a new Java class. So that's something you might write down in that pen and paper you've got there beside you, okay? I think Netbeans does come with a dark mode. I'm not familiar with how to turn it on right now, but I think it might. Okay. So right-click, new, and Java class is how you add a new Java file to your project. Okay. This is going to be our instantiable class, so we'll just call it counting. Okay, and finish. Again, I'm just going to increase the font size. Just seems a little bit small. There we go. Okay, so this is counting.java, and this is our instantiable class. Okay, so this is where we're going to start to declare all the variables that we had declared in our IPO chart, and to do our process in our compute method. All right. And then in your app class, you're just calling all of those things from the app class the way we always did. So let's get started. Private. Wait, no, what am I have to do? Now, there's a few things here, right? Private int. Let's start with the string. Private string input. Private, again, if you spot me making any typos or errors, let me know. I am the queen of typing mistakes, so please don't hesitate to correct me. I would like to lie and say I do it just to test you, but I don't. Okay. Int letters. Private int vowels. Private int cons. And private words. So those are my variables. I could even put my little comment up here, okay? Declare data members. Now, you'll see it color codes all of the words the same way that TextPad did. String is navy, int is blue. All the variable names are now green, okay? And when you hover over them, you'll get this little message saying field input is not used, okay? Or field letters is not used. And that's simply because we've got these variables and we've not used them yet. So that's just Netbeans getting ahead of us. It's not giving us a chance to use them, and it's wondering what's going on. Okay. Now, what do I usually put in my instantiable class after I declare my data members? Constructors, brilliant. Okay. All right. Exactly. The constructor gets the same name as the class. So public counting. All right. And these things like the constructor always gets the same name as the class. They're things you could be jotting down in your notepad just to remind you, because it's probably been a while since you've programmed anything. Okay. What do I usually do inside of my constructor? I'll give all of my data members default values. Exactly. So input equals empty quotes or new string, whichever is the one you tend to use. Letters equals 0. Vowels equals 0. Again, you'll see here vowels is not turned green because it doesn't match the vowels I had at the top. So if ever your variable names don't change color, you'll know you have a problem. Cons equals 0. And words equals 0. My mic is coming in and out, is it? Sorry, guys. Sean, for this module, we are going to use Netbeans, but we'll get you set up on it, so don't worry about it, okay? But we're not going to be using TextPad or Notepad, okay? And I'll show you why now. All right, so that's my constructor. Now, what do we usually put in next in Netbeans or in our instantiable class? Okay, I think the mic is fine for some people. If it becomes a problem, please let me know, guys. Setters would usually become next, okay? So setters, and the rule for setters is that we should have one for every input. So we should have one set method because we had one variable, one input variable, okay? So usually we would say public void set input. Bring input. This dot input. Input. Okay. Now, watch out for this, right? I'm used to having to open and close my methods myself, but the minute I put that open and curly bracket in at the start of the method, Netbeans added the closing one for me, okay? If I highlight one, it highlights the match. So if you're getting any reached end of file while parsing errors, you can just double check your brackets by highlighting one, and it'll highlight where it's closed, okay? I could do this, all right? Or if I just delete that and I right click and go to insert code, setter, and I select that input is my setter and I click generate, it puts it in for me. Okay, so this is why we're using Netbeans. Netbeans is what's called an IDE, an integrated development environment. And there are lots of applications out there like this. We are all going to use the same one for this module for consistency, but it does lots of things like this for us. It probably would have put in the constructor for us as well, okay? Similarly, we can put our getters in there in the same way. So we've learned now why setters and getters look the way they need to be. I'll do it again now for you. Yeah, no problem, Freddie. So we know now why setters and getters are the way they are and have to look the way they look and have to be structured the way they're structured. That's something I'm assuming you understand from last semester. So now we're moving on to throwing them in ourselves, okay? So we right click where you want the code to go, okay? Right click, insert code, setter. And again, this is one of those things you might write down, okay? And choose input string and click generate. Okay, and there's my setter. All right, same thing for the getters then. Public. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put my comment. Getters, and the rule for getters is one for every output. If I could spell output, I'd be doing well. Okay, so now I want my getters. Let's see that process again. Right click, insert code, getter. Now, I want a getter for cons, letters, vowels, and words. So I'll check all of those, skipping over straight input because we don't want that, and click generate, and there we have it. Public int get letters, return letters, public int get vowels, return vowels, and so on and so forth. All good? Okay. Now my instantiable class is almost done. The bit it won't do for you is the problem solving piece, which is your compute method. Okay, but it does my all of my setters and getters, okay, and even constructors. So just being a stickler for consistency, I'm going back. Do it again? Yep, no problem, Alex. So I'll just take out these getters. Okay, so I've put my heading in for my getters. I want to now insert them. So I right click, insert code, getter, okay? And I'll choose cons, letters, vowels, and words because they're my output variables. And I click generate, and it generates them for me. Now, that only works because I declared all of my variables at the start. So I still need to do the problem solving piece. I still need to decide what variables I need. Okay, and then I still need to do the compute part which is how I work out all the bits, okay? But now you won't have to worry about typing all of that out. You also won't be getting marks for it, all right? So this is the difference, okay? Last semester you got marks for constructing a setter or a getter. This semester that won't be the case. So now I've gone back in between my setters and getters, and I'm going to do my compute method, okay? Which is my process. Public void compute. All right, and now I'm onto my process. Guys, can we keep the football updates out of the chat for the class, please? All right, you can individually message people if you want to do that. Right, compute. How am I going to do my compute method? So we talked about having a loop. What kind of a loop should we use? A for loop. Perfect. Why not? Okay, so for I equals 0, I less than what? So how long are we going to loop? We're going to loop from 0, which is the first index in the string. And Freddie, no, there's no way to insert the process, right? This is the problem solving piece. The computer doesn't know how to do this, so we have to do this ourselves. Input.length, very good. Input.length. And see, even when I said input dot, it made suggestions for me. These are all the different variables you have at your beck and call for use on strings. And there's length, okay? And then I plus plus, or I equals I plus 1. Okay, again, I open the curly bracket for the for loop, and it immediately creates a closing bracket for me. It's also indenting everything for me as well. Okay. So now what am I going to do in my for loop? I'm going to first check if, let's check for vowels, because there's only 5 vowels, and that's always a nice one. If input dot, what's the method I'm going to use here? I want to check if the character at this place in the string matches a vowel. Not quite, not equals ignore case, not yet. Char at, brilliant, okay. So input dot char at, and there it is there. I, it even put I in for me, equals, okay. Now, we won't do equals ignore case because that's for strings, where here we're dealing with characters, okay? So we have a couple of ways we can handle that. We'll worry about the upper and lower case in a few minutes. For now, we'll just imagine everything is lowercase, okay? So if input.char at I equals A, and then I want to say or. How do I do or? What's my symbols for or? Brilliant, okay, or.
2 pipes.
Perfect, thank you. Input dot, well done guys, char at I equals E, char at I equals I, or, and you'll see there I'm using single quotes because I'm dealing with characters. Input dot char at I equals O, or input dot char at I equals U. If any of those things are true, the curly bracket, hit return. Let me just, there is no need for that window to be so big. There we go. Okay. If it matches a vowel, we want to say vowel plus plus, okay? And that means increase the value of vowels by 1. All right, you'll see it didn't turn green. Why is that? My word vowel there should have turned green. Why is it not green? What have I done wrong? Perfect, it should be vowels with an S, okay? Well done. So I'm sure it's all coming flooding back to you now at this stage, okay? So a spelling error will stop it from being consistent. Well done, guys. So that's my vowels. Every time I encounter a vowel, it will count It'll increase the number that's stored in the vowels variable from 0 to 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay? Else, if input char at I equals. Okay, so now we're on to, let's do spaces. Spaces is easiest next. If it's equal to a space, spaces plus plus. Oh, be careful. See now, this is what catches me when I go from TextPad to Netbeans. I keep trying to put in my own. Now, okay, what's wrong with spaces? We never declared a variable called spaces. Brilliant. Well done, guys. Okay. Now you'll see when you get an error like this, you get the squiggly line, you know it hasn't changed color, and you get the little light bulb over at the side. Okay. And if we hover, we get the error message that we would normally get after we've compiled something in TextPad. Cannot find symbol, variable, spaces, location, class counting. Okay. So it's saying in this class, we can't find a symbol called spaces. That's supposed to be a variable. So the error messages are a little bit cleverer and clearer in Netbeans as well, okay? So I'll pop back up and I'll just add in spaces. We didn't have it because we didn't use it as an input variable and we didn't use it as an output variable, and we forgot to assign or to declare any additional variables that we might need. So drive it into spaces. Spaces equals 0. Now, I'm conscious of time. So what we might do is abandon the idea of counting consonants for now, okay? If we found a space, we said in our chart that we were going to increase spaces, but we were also going to increase words. Okay, so I'm not going to do the consonants piece now. You can do it yourselves afterwards if you want, okay? Because I am conscious of time. So we've done vowels, spaces, and words. All right. Okay, and that is my compute method. No need to press tools, external tools, and compile. It actually even puts in the comment for you at the top. Look at this. Now, we do need to add counting.java and a date. Okay. Today is the 28th of the 9th, 2020. Okay. So your comment automatically goes in up the top. You can automatically generate your setters and getters and constructors. If you do generate the constructor, the default constructor, you'll still have to put in all the declarations yourself. Okay. All the default values there, the assignment of the values. Okay. And then we have our compute method. So that's it done. I don't have to compile it. It's automatically compiled. Any errors we got, we addressed as we went along. So now we're into counting app. Let's see if we can get this done before time runs out. So how are we going to handle input and output?
We have to instantiate.
Yes, we need to instantiate, but what are we going to use to get input from the user?
The system scan.
Use scanner, yeah, or JOption pane. Brilliant. And just want to pop the dates in there. Okay. So you see here now, it gives you your class header, public class counting app, and it gives you the public static void main, and then it even says, do your code here. Okay, so that's where you're going to write your code. All right. The only thing I am going to have to add here is import java.swing.joption pane. Okay, because I feel like using JOption pane today. Oh, what have I done wrong here? My error message. Java.swing does not exist. What should it be? JavaX. Brilliant. Thank you, Owen. Okay, so, and then in here, I'm onto my variables. Then I'm going to declare objects Then I'm going to do my input, my process, and my output. Okay. So my variables, I'm going to have string input, and I'm going to have int cons, vowels, words, and spaces. Okay, bearing in mind I didn't do the consonants piece, so we won't use that this time around, okay? The objects then, I'm on counting. How do I declare my object? Anybody?
Name equal count, new counts, bracket.
Yeah, so it's counting, my counting, and then to create my object is my counting equals new counting, yeah?
Yep.
Don't forget your round brackets at the end, okay? My input then, okay, we have only one input, and that is input equals, how do I use, can anybody remember how to use J option pane to get the input? So if I go J option pane dot, it gives me all the options. Look at this. Show input dialog. Okay. Okay. And we usually do null, comma, and then a string, please.
Why null?
And again, I don't think in the input box it has to go in, but in the output when it does, it's related to the level upon which the pane would normally appear if you were developing a full swing application, if you wanted it to appear on a particular layer. So it's to do with the layers, but we don't need to worry about it right now because we're just using it in isolation. But we'll see that when we get to swing. Please enter your sentence. Okay. Do we need to parse it? No need to parse, okay, because J option pane reads as a string and we want a string. If we were looking for a number, it would be different, okay? The process then, oh, actually, that's not my input finished. Now I have to say my counting dot, oh, be helpful if I spelled it right, my counting dot. Now, again, it gives me all of the options. Set input, look at that. And it even puts input into the brackets for me. It's nifty. Okay. That's my input done. Then my process, my counting dot. And here we would do, where's my compute method? There it is at the top. Double click and I get my counting dot compute. So there's no more kind of trying to remember what you called it in your instantiable class now. You know it's there, it's in the list, and you can just pick it. Okay, so less room for error. And then to get the answers back. So we did vowels equals my counting dot get vowels. Oh, need my semicolon. It doesn't put that in for me. Okay. And then words equals my counting dot get words. Okay, and most IDEs will do all of this for you. It's not something that's particularly special to Netbeans. Netbeans is just the one that we're using, partly because it's free. There are other free ones out there, but this is the one we tend to use. Vowels, words, and what was the last one? Spaces. Again, I'm skipping over consonants because we haven't finished the logic behind it. My counting dot get spaces. Ah, now I don't have a get spaces. So that tells me that when I did my last minute addition of the spaces variable, I forgot to add a spaces getter. So I need to right click, insert code, getter for spaces. So it's only giving me the option of the ones that aren't in there already and generate that. And that should resolve that form. Spaces. Okay. And then finally, J option pane dot show message dialog null. That sentence contains, how am I doing on time? Oh, we're doing okay. Contains plus vowels. It also closes quotations for you as well, which is really good. I will, Lorcan, I'll upload this code at the end, okay? Because I know I've rushed through it toward the end, so I'll upload this onto Moodle when we're finished. Vowels plus words plus spaces. And then to run it, assuming I have no errors. Where's my play? Oh yeah, so run and run project. Okay, your output window's down the bottom. Oh, my input box has popped up on the wrong screen. Apologies for that. So there's my input box. Mary had a little lamb. And I've lost the ability to spell today. So Mary had a little lamb. How many vowels have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vowels, and 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. Okay, so that sentence contains 6 vowels, 4 words, and 4 spaces. So our words and our spaces are coming out the same, but actually there were more words there. So how would we rectify that issue? There were more words than spaces. So what can we do to fix that? So yeah, we could say words equals what's in spaces plus 1, or we could just set words to start at 1, because if they're entering a string, there has to be at least 1 word. Okay, and then we count every additional word after that. Again, I don't need to be pressing save or compile or any of that sort of stuff. When I hit run, it builds the project again from scratch. Here's my input window. Mary had a little. I have to figure out how to make that bigger. Mary had a little lamb, and there it is. 6 vowels, 5 words, and 4 spaces. Okay, there's a question there. Could we streamline the code by putting the vowels and consonants into an array list and use the dot contains in a loop? We absolutely could, but that's not something we addressed in Intro to Programming last semester, so I was just keeping it to what we've already done. We will come upon array lists shortly, and we can explore all those possibilities then, but absolutely yes. And that's the thing to remember when writing code for this module, for all of your lab work, for your exam. There's a million different ways to do all of these things. Okay, I'm not looking for the right one. I'm looking for one of the right ones. Okay, so don't worry if yours is not exactly the same as someone else's. Right, if you decide to get into some sort of study group, yours can be as perfectly right as somebody else's, and they can be completely different solutions. Okay. Now, I think I have made you all work hard enough for today. Okay, lots covered today. We looked at the module overview. We looked at plagiarism in code, and we looked at using Netbeans for the first time with a very simple example, which I will put on Moodle for you now. It may well be a zipped folder. Okay, so I'll put that up on Moodle as soon as the class ends, and you can then have a chance to maybe finish out your own work. Okay, if you're having issues getting Netbeans installed, please let me know. All right, you can also use Citrix. but I think it might just be easier for you to have the application on your own machine. I'm just going to stop the recording now so we can make that available also.
Can you show the app file, please, on the bottom, the last code, please?
Show the bottom of the app class, is it?
Yep.
Okay. And there was something else I was going to say there. Yes, the recording for the class, when it's available, I'll pop it on the Moodle page. As the semester goes on and things get a little bit busier, it might become a little bit hectic, but you can always find the recording in the chat of the meeting. So when you come back into this team via Microsoft Teams, open up the chat. Once the recording's available, it pops up as a message in the chat window. So you'll always find it there anyway. Okay. And then once I get a chance, I'll copy the link and I'll put it on the Moodle page regardless. Okay. Any other questions before we wrap it up today? Thanks, guys. I know it is a bit of a slog at this hour of the day, but really good work, really great engagement. So it was great to see. And there was a lot of you here as well, which is good. I'd like to see that continue throughout the semester because it's really important that you stay on top of this. It's not the kind of thing you want to fall behind in. Okay. Oh, and if you wanted to share one of your errors, we can see if we can help resolve them. The recording takes a little while to do whatever it needs to do in the background before it comes available. So it might be about 20 minutes or so. It's quite a long recording. It's 2 hours, so it could take a few minutes. Once it's available, it'll pop into the chat and you'll get notified. Okay. If you are having any errors with your code and you want to share them, be happy to try and resolve them for you. Let me see, can I give you access to share your screen now? Hang on. We might find as the semester goes on that it's a little bit tricky to get people into presenter mode and out of presenter mode, and certainly I've not been having any luck with it today. Netbeans is not or Teams is not my friend today, so I don't know if that will have worked, Owen. Yeah, and so you should see the share screen option now in your menu bar if you want to share it there.
Francis?
Yep.
When a word is highlighted in the orange or yellow, what does that mean?
If it's highlighted in orange or yellow, that's just so for instance, if I click on one of my variable names, it highlights everywhere that variable is being used throughout the code. That's typically why it would highlight.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, great. Let me see here. I might have to move this over to my bigger screen. Okay, can you hover over the exclamation mark off to the side there, Owen? Okay, if sent.chart. Okay, and now just go back to the code. Okay, for int t equals 0, t less than sent.length t plus plus. Ah, I see. So see in line 43 where the red exclamation mark is, if sent.char at t equals empty quotes, round brackets. You need to close a round bracket there before your curly bracket. There may be another error. You shouldn't have to run it with errors, so they should resolve when you fix the code. Okay, so go back to your instantiable class because it's an error in there is bringing so click back on your count tab first. Yep, anyone who's finished and wants to head off can do so. Okay, that's no problem. It's always useful to see other people's errors and how they get resolved at the same time. Yeah, I'll be with you in just a second, Stephen. I'm done, so if you're done, you can head off, okay? I'm just going to help a couple of people who have errors. What is going on here now? I think, okay, I think you're missing a curly bracket. See where you said else and you've an open curly bracket? You're actually not really doing anything there at the minute anyway. If you just put another closing one in there, down under